Hi, my name is Cassandra Lettenberger-Klein. I have my PhD in marriage and family therapy, and I'm currently a clinician at a private practice near Atlanta. And I also am an adjunct faculty member for an online MFT master's and doctoral program. So I've been asked to talk to you about communication and how it relates to marriage and family therapy, and a little bit about my experience and some of my expertise. So I guess I'll start a little bit with my research. I won't go into too much detail, but I started researching communication, specifically looking at couples when I was in my master's program. And for my master's thesis, I looked at how assertiveness, which is clearly just one aspect of communication, could influence sexual satisfaction. And I found that it does, that people who are more assertive tend to have higher sexual satisfaction. And then when I got into my doctoral program, I looked more at family communication, and I used a secondary data set that was specifically families who were involved in the child welfare system. So certainly any results we can't say that that would be true for everybody, but more so looking at communication, certain aspects of communication, and how it can be a resource for families. So from there, well, throughout my time doing research, I was also seeing clients, and I found a lot of, I guess, inspiration in my research from my clinical work. And when I was in my master's program, I think that started because nearly every couple, actually I can't even think of one couple I saw that didn't mention having some type of communication problem. And so it became very clear to me pretty early, okay, so communication is a pretty big deal, and it's something that people kind of come in saying that they want or that they need help with. So that kind of inspired me to start looking at that. And as I said, it was mostly couples, but as I saw more and more clients and different types of clients, I realized this isn't just something that couples experience, that really families in general typically need more help with communication, or that's something that they're asking for. So in my practice now, I typically see a lot more couples than families, and that has kind of held true that pretty much all throughout my career, seeing couples come in and say, communication is one of our main issues and we need help with it. So I think specifically related to marriage and family therapy and studying that, I've been able to tie in my general, I guess, knowledge about communication and what I think, or what I thought good communication was, to a lot of the theories that I learned about and continue to learn about. So I think, for an example, when we talk about any of the transgenerational theories, so like Bowen, contextual even, it's very obvious that the ways that we communicate come from what we see as we were growing up, so from our family of origin. So a lot of the couples, especially in times of high anxiety, they respond and they communicate in ways that they saw their family, either their parents or grandparents or relatives, how they responded in times of anxiety. They do the same thing, and so it can be pretty insightful and amazing for people when they're able to kind of connect. Okay, so when I'm angry, I tend to either communicate by raising my voice and really trying to just get that person to listen to me, or kind of the other end of the spectrum, I communicate by just walking away, which clearly is still communicating something. So, which I think is another important aspect, that with communication, we're not just talking about that verbal back and forth between people, but we're also talking about communicating with body language and with tone and kind of all these aspects that maybe we don't initially think about. So in talking to couples, I was able to really relate a lot of theories that I was learning about in MFT to this idea of what effective communication is. And as I got further along in my studies, there's several theories that specifically address kind of the behavioral communication aspect. So like emotionally focused therapy, they really focus on kind of these aspects of communication and these behavioral changes, like validating, so kind of reframing for each other what you've heard the other person say, and letting them know that you've heard them and understood them. So I think it's pretty it seems, I guess, pretty obvious, and at least it was pretty obvious to me that communication was so highly correlated and related to marriage and family therapy, because it really is at the heart of what I was doing and what families typically need help with. And so I think that was another kind of important aspect with communication, that in therapy I could model for families, for couples, for whoever it was, appropriate and effective ways to communicate. And so it's a pretty isomorphic process where, I mean, in session you're modeling communication, you're talking about communication, and helping them within the session, the family that you're working with or the couple that you're working with, and then translating that even to other family members. So I think that that really, I mean, again, and everything and anything that you do when you're interacting in a clinical sense, and especially in marriage and family therapy, it is directly tied to communication. And there isn't a ton of research that's, I think, well, I guess I can't say that, but as far as research related to communication, there wasn't a ton that I found that is kind of currently happening. So there is definitely studies looking at aspects of communication tied to, for example, emotionally focused couples therapy. But it was kind of difficult sometimes for me to find current and relevant studies that look specifically at general communication. So I think it's so relevant, but we don't necessarily have a ton of information about specifically like what type of communication and what aspects of communication are really helpful or relevant in therapy. So I'm hoping that as kind of time progresses, maybe more people will become interested and we'll have even more knowledge and information about this aspect. So I will say, though, that currently in my practice, that I've had a lot of people recently, a lot of couples recently who've come to me and talked about self-help books that they've gotten, and a lot of self-help books tend to focus on communication. And I've kind of come full circle because a lot of it is really at the core being more assertive. And so assertive communication is being able to express yourself and identify your needs and identify what you want in a way that allows for other people to want to meet those needs, or to be able to even understand and hear those needs. And so it's interesting because I think maybe in the general public there is more awareness now about what effective communication looks like, and there's a lot of resources as far as, like I said, kind of self-help books that people can access. And so I'm finding more and more now that people come into therapy and have these ideas of what I should be helping them do. And a lot of the self-help books aren't necessarily from marriage and family therapists, so I think they feel really excited and they're anxious to kind of delve more into when I get into their family of origin stuff, or when we talk about boundaries and things that maybe weren't necessarily discussed in their self-help book. So I feel like it's, again, so super relevant, and definitely I couldn't even imagine doing any type of therapy, let alone marriage and family therapy, where you're interacting with multiple people in a system, in a family system, without focusing on communication. I mean, I just think that's a pretty foreign concept. So I'm still super excited, and I think I still use a lot of what I've learned about communication, even the aspects of communication, like the person who wants to communicate and the receiver, so the sender and the receiver, and the method of communication. So it could just be with body language, it could be, again, verbally talking, and the way that people are doing that. So am I doing that via text, or am I doing that person to person? And so these things that I learned really in my early days of studying family studies are still relevant and still useful for me now, and I've kind of progressed throughout my education, and as I have my PhD and I'm working in a setting, and so I'm still using those things, those tools that I learned in probably the same class you're in now. So it's pretty exciting, and I think pretty relevant. So if you have any questions, I will make sure to pass along my contact information to your instructors, and please feel free to contact me if you need anything. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.